Hi, my name is Ivy Scheck-Snyder, and I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas. Please be patient. I'm creating this video using a different computer. Hopefully everything is working, but if something is not working well, please comment. Today I'm talking very briefly about why your horse may or may not know how to do groundwork, specifically lunging, why they may not stand for mounting. I've done this video before, but it was a little while ago, so I decided just to do a refresher. This isn't a super complicated topic, and it's mostly so that I can share this video when people ask this question. So very briefly, gaited horses in America are I say up and coming breed. They've been up and coming since the 90s, and they've only grown in popularity. Many of the horses at the beginning came from the areas of like Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, and the surrounding states like Southern Illinois, Southern Ohio, Southern Indiana, Pennsylvania, those areas. And they were often used primarily by people that kind of knew how to ride. But with the baby boomer generation getting a little older and wanting to trail ride, they became a great source of horses for those that don't want to ride the bumpy trot. Very simple. But with that came the whole history and generational way of working with gaited horses. Primarily, they come from an area such as Kentucky and Tennessee that overall is a very sort of, redneck population. And the way that some of them, not all, this is a broad categorization, a lot of them just looked at horses as transportation. They just got on and rode, and that was the way they trained horses. So when people would go look at horses, they would ride them, they would feel this smooth gait, they would be amazed, they would get the horse, they would bring it home, and they would find out the horse had not had any groundwork training done. They had only, they've been saddled. They weren't like dishonest when they sold you this horse, but a lot of those people didn't see the need to teach the horse to stand quietly for mounting, to know how to lunge softly and not just run around or run away from a whip. They didn't teach them how to, drop their head, to be haltered gently and walk slowly next to a rider and then walk quickly without having anyone pull on them. Some of them didn't even want to be caught in the pasture. Some of them had never been trained to be tacked up without being in, I'm blanking on it, in cross ties. Many of them, they were just gotten on and ridden, and that's what they were used to. And so when people then bought horses and they brought the horse home and found, oh my gosh, my horse kind of runs me over, not because they're mean, but because they'd never learned to do personal space. And when someone tries to lunge, the horse has never been lunged in his life. Now, these are not reasons to not buy those horses or those gaited horses, but it is something to be aware of. Now, I talked about this being the case as the horses have gotten more popular in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. The problem is it's still happening. Many people, now the good news is this is changing. Many people sort of think that they're trail horses and you just get on and you go, and if they're gaiting, great. Now you're seeing a change as horses are going to auction. They're being taught to come to the mounting block. They're being taught to lunge. They're being taught to be tacked up without having to be tied up. And these are wonderful things. They're learning to neck rein. They're learning to ground tie. Be happy for these changes. This is so good for the industry, but be aware this is not all of the horses. Many of the horses have never been taught to lunge. And let me take this even farther. Many of you, and the talk that's been spread is that you shouldn't lunge a gaited horse. And so many people don't teach it either out of ignorance or lack of desire or, whatever it is. But a lot of them have never been taught to lunge. A lot of them don't know how to stand at the mounting block. Or here's another huge one. Most of the horses that come to my clinic, this is what the riders say. When I bought this horse, as soon as I got in the saddle, the horse took off. It's a very common thing that riders would jump on and they would just go instead of standing there patiently. So be aware that this is a very common practice. Now, it's fairly easy to train a horse to stand for you to mount and to wait for you to walk them off. That's not a big deal. It's easy to train a horse to lunge. Many of things are easy to work with and correct if you're aware of them, but sometimes this catches riders unaware, especially if you get a horse home and you want to go on a trail ride right away and you're like, why is my horse rushing through the bit? Many things. So another thing that comes up is a lot of the times, if you look at these horses that are for sale, many, but not all, are ridden in a shanked bit. Now, if you go to ride this horse and you ride this horse in anything less than the bit they were being ridden in, you have the chance of this horse ignoring your cues and running away, because the horse is used to, let's say that bit puts 5 pounds of pressure in his mouth. And then but the rider only pulls 1 or 2 pounds of pressure, but because it's a leverage bit, they feel 5 pounds. If you bring the horse home and you put less of a bit in their mouth and you put 1 to 2 pounds of pressure and he only feels 1 to 2, he may completely ignore it until you use 5 pounds of pressure. Very basic. It's physics and math, or so I'm told. So be aware that these things are not trained. Many gaited horses are not neck reined. This has come as a huge surprise to many people that are coming to gaited horses from the quarter horse world. They're like, why is this horse not neck reined? Some of them can barely turn because they're so used to just going on a trail and going straight. Now, that said, trail horses do need to be well trained. Because they deal with a lot. They deal with dogs and deer and birds and snakes, other horses, people on motorcycles, dirt bikes, skiers, pheasants, turkey. Did I say that already? Random branches falling out of the sky. I've been there when that's happened. Bees. They have to deal with people walking. It's not like trail horses are just horses you can ignore. They need to have a good foundation in training so that they and their rider stay safe. And this is why it's so important to do all of this work. But getting back to, why does my horse know nothing? And that's because many times that part of their training is ignored. The idea of teaching them to move softly in a circle, to teaching them to side pass or to leg yield, to soften with the lightest bit of contact. A lot of those things are considered something you wouldn't do because you just trail ride. Many of the people that I know that's trail riding is what they want to do, they spend a lot of time on groundwork and prepping at home to get their horse used to things and to get them so they can lunge. Another reason why it's important to actually lunge or gait a horse is if you want to do any kind of competitive trail riding, they need you to do circles with your horse. But by many trainers who just focus on gaited horses, this is a skill that is often ignored. So this video is supposed to be short, and we don't have a lot of people watching, and that's totally fine. But I want to share this. So if you are looking at getting a gaited horse, you have a gaited horse, you know someone who's interested, help them be aware that some of these foundations are missing in some of the horses. Some of the horses we're seeing now are really well trained. They are finished. All of this stuff is done. But there's a great many horses out there that have not had this training, and it's important for you to recognize that. Ed says, I was just talking about this today. Most gaited horses have been taught very little. Most times they focus on gait in their training. You're right. Groundwork is non-existent, or if it's done wrong. You're so right, Ed. Ed says, your groundwork should translate to the saddle. Absolutely. Everything you do should be about helping the horse to understand what you're telling, building that trust and connection with the horse. And a lot of people who initially train the gaited horses ignore this part. It's all about getting in the saddle and training the gait. Linda says she's watching. Hey, Linda. But let me tell you the good news. I don't love groundwork, but what I love is training. Now, I know many of you, what you love is trail riding. But think of this as a way, this kind of training is how you can get your horse to be good on the trail. And a lot of you, it's not fun. I've talked to many people that are like, Ivy, you're so patient. I can tell you like it, but I don't want to do that. And I'm like, I know, but you have to. Now, let's say you don't want to have to teach all of this. You are going to have to be extra picky when looking at horses. When you're looking at a horse, ask someone to send you a video of them lunging him. Ask them to tack the horse up without being tied up. Can they do that? Is the horse terrified of the saddle? I mean, so many things can come into play if you know the questions to ask. Sharon says, love trail riding, foundation is the key. Yeah, Sharon is someone, she loves trail riding. She goes trail riding all throughout the winter. She has clothes so that she can do that, but she spends a lot of time doing the foundation so her horses are good to take out on the trail. Sarah says, I'm in the process of training my gaited horse to fox hunt. He's an amazing jumper. That's awesome. Chrissy says, when I got Callie, she knew how to load and lead. And that's it. And now, Chrissy's horse, Callie, she can do all this. She can lunge, she can side pass, she can do obstacles. We did last summer, we were practicing obstacles. Chrissy didn't know how Callie was going to do. She picked up this giant umbrella, and her horse was totally fine with it. But that's foundation. That wasn't the horse coming from the trainer that way. That was practice and intention. So your horse may not know anything other than not buck you off. They may go on a trailer and they may go on the trail, but they may not know how to do that safely with you and do other things. But that's the fun thing. You get to build that relationship with your horse along the way if you work at it, if you take that time and you're willing to do those foundational things. And you know what? It's going to make you a better person, and you're going to be able to read your horse better when you're on the trail and riding them, which is going to keep you safer. And along with helping your horse, I want to keep riders safe. And of course, I want them to have a smooth gait, but that's down the road. So let me know in the comments what things your horse did or didn't know when you got them and what you ended up teaching them. And if you have any videos, that will be awesome too. I'm going to post some videos shortly, hopefully, of someone whose horse was horrible at mounting. And not a gaited horse, actually, but a horse that didn't know how to mount. And she did my how I train it, which is really quick and fun and easy. And now her horse comes right to her on the mounting block, which is, I think, a very crucial skill so that you can mount your horse easily. And you'll know when you see this horse because he's giant. Sharon says, hard work, practice, confidence. Yep, absolutely. I think all of that applies to horses. And if you just want horses to be your hobby and your outlet for stress, learn to love training, and then you will have an awesome time with your horse. Coming up this week, we are hopefully going to talk about what surfaces and footing you should ride on. That's been a question that people have been asking. I want to do a video of what the ears mean, like what your horse's ears mean when you're riding and how you can use that to stay safe. So that'll hopefully be this week. If you like this video, please share. It will help other people. And hopefully you guys aren't too cold. Coming soon, exercises you can do in the winter. You got this.